New tonight, policing our schools. The NBC 10 investigators expose uneven rates of discipline.
You're saying it was how often?
Every week or every 2 weeks.
Certain races far more likely to be suspended.
There is really a desperate need to do things differently.
We dug into the topic of school discipline after the federal government released troves of records.
Investigative reporter George Spencer found they show some local districts suspending nearly 1 out of every 4 students.
For Ariana Alston Lloyd, now a high school junior, studying has become a priority. But as a freshman, she says her daily 20-minute walk to Upper Darby High School got her in trouble. Tardy arrivals led to Saturday detentions, and when she skipped detentions, she was suspended again and again.
Like every week or 2 weeks, yeah.
And so your punishment for being late to school was missing more school?
Yes, yes.
Parts of Ariana's experience are very common. When we analyzed the most recent available data on discipline rates across the country, we discovered districts in our area with suspension rates far above the national average of about 5.5%. The Pleasantville Public School District reported a rate more than 4 times that. At 23% of students suspended at least once, it was the highest in our region, followed by William Penn, Chester Community, Reading, and Southeast Delco districts rounding out the top 5. Upper Darby is number 8 at 14%.
Removing a kid from school has become the easiest and the all-purpose form of intervention.
Harold Jordan of the ACLU of Pennsylvania authored the group's review of discipline and policing in schools. He says so-called zero-tolerance policies have grown excessive and now push students out of the classroom even for relatively minor infractions. He believes the disengagement impacts students long after their suspensions end.
Those kids are much more likely to just have a negative relationship with educators and with the school system in the future.
As we dug deeper, we realized the issue is not just how many students are suspended, it's which students are suspended. In some local districts, the racial disparities are hard to miss. In Pleasantville schools, 38% of students are black, but among students suspended more than once, that number jumps to 65%. Coatesville schools are 31% black, but blacks represented 63% of multiple suspension students. And in Alston Lloyd's Upper Darby School District, blacks make up 46% of the student body, but they accounted for more than 80% of students suspended more than once.
It's concerning that a large number of our African American students are disciplined.
And why is that happening, though?
Listen, I think percentage-wise, again, we have a lot of students that transfer into our district that didn't have the same foundational opportunities that Upper Darby provides their kids.
Upper Darby Assistant Superintendent Daniel McGarry tells us that highly transient student population and a support staff limited by tight budgets lead to the higher suspension rate. The district says it's been addressing the concern for several years now, adjusting its code of conduct to be less punitive, offering new intervention plans to repeat offenders, and training teachers on supportive relationships. But in the meantime, McGarry insists the application of discipline is colorblind. Do you think the suspension policies are being applied evenly across the races?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Alston Lloyd, for one, says she has gotten back on track since her suspension spree.
I think I actually matured a lot more. I definitely got myself together.
But she says she knows others who have not and may never. For the investigators, George Spencer, NBC 10 News.
The Upper Darby and William Penn school districts were the only 2 districts mentioned in our story which replied to our request for comment. William Penn says it is, quote, actively working to reduce the suspension rate. We posted their full responses as part of this story on NBC10.com.
New tonight, policing our schools and a culture shift in our region's biggest district.
I look at the data and I'm like, wow, I mean, we're locking up 10-year-old children for coming in school for a pair of scissors.
In Philadelphia, the focus now is on arresting fewer students.
It puts me on a better path. Today at 5, the NBC 10 investigators showed you the local school districts where suspension rates were far above the national average.
But investigative reporter George Spencer found our region is also home to a program that is changing the narrative on school discipline.
These days, Sean Allen walks the hallways of his high school with a certain maturity. For him, the past 4 years at Parkway Northwest have been a second chance after a freshman year mistake that could have gotten him arrested.
I just grabbed a random book bag and threw my football equipment into it, not knowing that the knife that she told me to hide from my little sisters was inside that book bag.
So you brought that knife to school?
Yes, by accident.
Under the School District of Philadelphia's old zero-tolerance rules, weapons violations like that were grounds for automatic arrest, mistake or not. But the summer before Allen's run-in, then Deputy Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel was considering fundamental changes.
I said, well, let me pull the data. Let me take a look at what are we doing as a department. And when I looked at it, I was like, wow.
That data showed Philly police arresting nearly 1,600 of the district's students each year, and 80% of those students were black, even though black students make up only 51% of the district's total enrollment. Officials say for many students, even relatively minor offenses led to arrests and disengagement, the start of the so-called school-to-prison pipeline. Philly police and educators alike believed something had to give.
We had to change our approach. We had to change how we were talking with youth.
Superintendent Dr. William Haidt says that change was a deep cultural shift. First, they threw out the zero-tolerance rules, then partnered with the Department of Human Services and others. The team focused on targeting and treating the root causes of behavior problems. Haidt says the student climate in his schools got better, even at a time when district budgets were at their worst.
We think about this as a money problem when it actually is a mindset change. It's a behavior change.
Most importantly, the district says student arrest rates plummeted from that high of nearly 1,600 to a little more than 700 in the first year to fewer than 600 last year. Bethel took the results as a full-time calling, retiring from police work to study how Philadelphia's model can be taken nationwide.
My goal, and I'm very honest about that, is trying to get law enforcement to see this from a different place.
Allen was among the very first success stories in the arrest diversion program, but nearly being arrested was not his biggest wake-up call.
And like my legs started hurting really bad. So.
And that's what they found out was cancer?
Yes.
He says he brought the coping skills learned during that intervention program even to that life or death battle. Now cancer-free and planning on college, he believes all doors are open for him and for his unblemished record.
I don't have to worry about me having a criminal record at a young age, or I don't have to worry about people looking at me different as if I was a young criminal.
For the investigators, George Spencer, NBC 10 News.